Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 133 of Crunch Time. I am going to be your host of today's episode. I am Tanner Dislin. As always, I am joined by Sam Gotzi, and we are the N326 duo. Samuel, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all right, Tanner. It's getting to that time of the year where majority of sports are dying down. NBA obviously in the finals, Stanley Cup in the finals, um, and College World Series coming up this next couple days. So all that's left is MLB, and as everyone knows, I'm not the biggest fan, so it's kind of a slow period in sports.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, we went from watching playoff basketball and hockey while we record to now, of course, we're watching baseball, much to Sam's chagrin. But yeah, so we got a pretty exciting episode for you guys today. I mean, we're gonna start winners and losers. We're going back to that this week. We'll give a little finals update. It's not been the best so far. The Celtics do have a 2-0 lead, but we'll go further in depth on that in a little bit. And then we actually have a guest for today's episode. Jaron Kuykendall is coming on the episode to talk a little bit about the College World Series that is starting up here soon. So all of that and more right here on episode 133. Of course, we got to start as we normally do with our winners and losers. So, Sam, who is your winner of the episode?
Yeah, my winner of the episode got crowned champions, four back to back to back to back champion. The Oklahoma Sooners softball absolutely dominated all year. Ended up putting their Big 12 and now SEC rival Texas in the dirt in just 2 games in the Women's College World Series. So, yeah, they're absolute wagon. I think we actually had a episode about them talking about how dominant they were this time last year, and they just continue to dominate, reload and restock every year, and they're just an absolute force in one of the best dynasties we've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. I mean, obviously, a Red River rivalry for a championship is nuts in and of itself, and brought some pretty intense energy. But one thing I noticed, I mean, because we talk about how dominant they've been in that. I mean, obviously that's true for a four-peat is absolutely insane. But for this time, actually, one thing I noticed that they actually weren't the 1 seed; they
Yeah.
were the 2 seed, and Texas was the 1 seed. So, I mean, it does not matter if they are 1 seed, 2 seed, favored, not fit. They're just going to win the damn thing
Yeah.
anyway. So, yeah, huge shout out to Oklahoma softball. A four-peat is incredibly difficult to come by no matter what sport you're playing, no matter what level you're playing. So, yeah, I just not much more can be said about the level of dominance from Oklahoma softball. But I'm going to stick in the college sports realm, Sam. I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but the Los Angeles Lakers are looking for a new head coach. And we almost had a big time move, shake up in college basketball, but we did not. And that is why the UConn Huskies are my big winner, because Dan Hurley, since he came in and took over the UConn Huskies job, he has done nothing but turn it around. I mean, obviously, it's UConn. It's not like we're sitting here talking about a program that's absolutely
Yeah.
dirt level. But for a while there, it got dicey. And Dan Hurley has taken them back to the top. Of course, they are back-to-back NCAA title champions, the first team to do that since Florida did. And they've been absolutely dominant in both those runs. I mean, I guess we're talking about the episode of dominant college sports here, because do they have a single-digit win in either of those two runs? I don't think they did.
No.
I mean, everything has been double digits. I think at least I know last year, like I guess 2 years ago when they beat San Diego State in the championship game, that run, the closest team to play on the close was St. Mary's.
Yeah.
But anyway, they've just been absolutely dominant, and he was the leading candidate for the Lakers head coaching position. They even offered him a 6-year, $70 million contract, to which he declined to stay at UConn and decided that he wanted to go for that three-peat. So UConn is keeping its head honcho, undisputed best coach in college basketball, the most dominant team over the past few years. The team is probably going to be ranked number one again because why not? And yeah, all of that is because he decided not to go to LA. So UConn, huge news for you.
Yeah, and honestly, not surprised. Dan Hurley has always seemed to be kind of a player's college coach, and you can be the best coach in the world and you can suck in the NBA because let's be honest here, Tanner, uh, it's all about managing egos in the NBA. And honestly, the worst ego to coach is probably LeBron James. So, except I would have loved to see Dan Hurley get yelling at LeBron and AD when they take a defensive play off or when they want load management. So we are getting missed on that, but his personality is the face of college basketball, and it's good to have him back for sure.
Yeah, I mean it would have been really interesting because with the amount of money these players are getting paid, in professional sports, it's always coaching has always been an interesting spot because how do players who have always been the best and they think they know how do they respond to coaching, right? And yeah, Danny Hurley's a rather aggressive coach. I mean, I'm sure that's why he's had so much success at the college level. But yeah, he gets in people's faces. I mean, he's up 25 and someone doesn't get back and stop the ball correctly. He's calling a timeout and he is screaming at that player. So how that would have played out in the NBA, I don't know. That would have been interesting, but we don't get to see it because obviously, as we've said a million times, he is staying at UConn. But Sam, who's your loser of the episode?
Of course, we got to talk about it. Yeah, this should honestly become a new segment on the show, and that's why is everyone hating Caitlin Clark? Of course, I am talking about the biggest loser in USA women's basketball team. Yeah, she got snubbed. The roster came out late last week, and Caitlin Clark was nowhere to be found. Honestly, none of the rookies were selected. Kind of surprising there. But she got snubbed. That was like, okay, she is the face of women's sports, period. Do you know how many? They say they want it. We talked about this at length a couple last episode. She's a face. She brings so many eyes to these games. The amount of millions of people that she would have brought being on the team would have brought, and that opportunity got taken away from her. And then so she got snubbed. There wasn't really any comments by anybody, but then article came out in about how that there might have been a interesting factor into Clark not being selected, and that is two other sources, both longtime U.S. basketball veterans with decades of experience in the women's game, told USA Today that the concern over how Clark's millions of fans would react to what would likely be limited playing time on a stacked roster was a factor in the decision making. If true, that would be an extraordinary admission of the tension that this multi-million-dollar sensation who signs autographs for dozens of children before and after the game has caused for the old guard of women's basketball. So basically, the reason she was not selected on the team was because her fans would get mad. Her millions of fans, they claimed she has millions of fans, is the reason why. And to an extent, I agree. She's probably not a top 12 player in the WNBA. I don't think anybody's arguing that. But she's not. She won Rookie of the Month. She was the face, again, the face of women's basketball, period. And obviously we've seen some, comments about Caitlin Clark, she's handling it like a pro. She texted her fever coach, "Hey coach, they woke a monster." And then the next game, she dropped like 30, and it's just interesting. And then even more, even more came out about this, just like the impact Caitlin Clark has on the WNBA. Attendance is up 156% from last year. About 40 or 400K fans have attended WNBA games this season, filling arenas to 94%. The televised games, 1.32 million average, nearly triple last season's average. WNBA Countdown is averaging 741K viewers, a 211% increase from last year's full season average. The WNBA online merch store has already set a single season's record with 4+ less. Sales are up 756%, 157 million video views, an all-time high, and up 380% compared to last year. And League Pass subscriptions are up 355%. And you cannot tell me that this is, and they actually, in viewership, just to be like, oh, it might have been Angel Reese, Cameron Brink. The opening night matchup, Fever versus the Sun, averaged 2.12, peaking at 2.34 most watched WNBA. Who was playing in that game? Of course, Caitlin Clark. That was on ESPN2, ABC. Guess who was playing in their most viewed game? Yep, the Fever, 1.71, making it the most viewed WNBA game on ABC ever, and the second most across Disney's networks ever. The first being that opening night, and yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. Um, like I said, I don't think she's a top 12 player in the league right now, but they say they want to build women's sports, WNBA specifically, and then you take off the face of the sport on the international stage. It just seems they keep swinging and missing.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a couple things to look at here because I definitely agree, right? I mean, obviously, anytime anything has happens with Caitlin Clark ever, there's going to be outrage, right, on either side. But I agree. I don't think she's one of the best 12 or 13 players. So if they had just came out and said, we wanted to choose the best 12 or 13 American players in the WNBA, and Caitlin Clark is great, but we're not going to give it to her because she's Caitlin Clark. You need to earn your spot on this team. I am 100% okay with it. And to be honest with you, that's the first I've heard of the what you said about worrying how her fans would react to that. If that is the reason that that they did not want to have to deal with Caitlin Clark fans being like, "Hey, why isn't she getting more playing time?" That's really lame. That is really lame. So, yeah, I mean, the way things are being handled is definitely tough. I do think, I mean, everyone agrees. I think maybe there's a little bit of a missed opportunity. But if they didn't decided that that's not the route they wanted to go, because again, she's not one of the top 12, that's fine. Just say that. Just be like, look, we're just trying to put together the best team. And right now, she's not there, and that's fine. And yeah, so it's with Caitlin Clark, everyone has to lose their head either way. But yeah, the fact that they came out and said, or that someone was quoted saying, we didn't want to deal with her fans, that is bogus.
Yeah,
that's absolutely bogus. But as you said, Caitlin Clark, I mean, we should all react to news about Caitlin Clark the same way Caitlin Clark reacts to news about Caitlin Clark. Just being like, okay, it is what it is. I'm just going to play basketball.
Yeah. And it's not only was I mean, yes, Caitlin Clark is known for her scoring abilities in college, She's fourth in assists
Yeah, right. I mean,
in the WNBA right now.
she's objectively having a very good rookie year. It's just the fact that there were some idiot fans out there who said she's going to come in and drop 40 a night like she did in college. She's going to light the league on fire. That obviously was never going to happen.
Yeah.
And because there were idiot fans who said that, there were other fans that saying, Caitlin Clark, I hate her because her fans are crazy and they disrespect everyone who's already been in the and it just became this back and forth of absolute bullcrap.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is Caitlin Clark is having a very good rookie season. Caitlin Clark is not a top 12 player in the league right now. That is okay. And I think most people like us who are level-headed about things can admit that. But half the world cannot. And that's what's just so damn frustrating.
So there's another page to this book. Guess who's the number one reserve spot for Team USA?
Angel Reese.
Caitlin Clark.
Oh, okay. See, she's right there.
Yeah. So it's just a huge overreaction, missed opportunity.
There's no doubt about that. Like we said, yeah, probably a missed opportunity, but people need to relax all over the place. And by the way, there was a part of me that was hoping that was Angel Reese just for the takes. That would have been
just
awesome.
for the takes. Absolutely.
That would have been awesome. But anyway, yeah. So just another day, another
what's gonna happen next?
Another 10, 15 minutes talking about the WNBA, but literally anything but basketball.
Yeah.
Regarding the WNBA. So yeah. Classic WNBA right now. But for my loser of the episode, I'm gonna have to go with the Golf Channel, Sam. Surely you saw this.
Yeah, not great.
The Golf Channel was airing a Pro-Am tournament this past weekend. And one of the players who was playing in that was Vince Young, of course, former Texas quarterback, led them to the national title game, won Rookie of the Year with the Titans, one of the bigger prospects in college football / NFL history. They were, and he was playing golf. So they sent it down and they went to interview Vince Young, and the reporter was, asking what was it like winning that championship, winning that Rookie of the Year, asking him stuff about Vince Young's career in the NFL. That's all fine and good. The only problem was who they were interviewing was not, in fact, Vince Young. It was Everett Sands, who is a coach at the Citadel and played at the Citadel. But yeah, so it was just another black guy on the course, and the Golf Channel just immediately was like Vince Young.
Yeah.
And I mean, a huge shout out to Everett Sands, who handled it as good as well as you possibly could imagine, saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong person." And she just continued to persist on asking him questions about Vince Young. And he said that the lady came up and said, Vince, and said, "We're going to interview you." And he thought that she was introducing herself to him, her name was Vince. And she said, "Can I interview you after you tee off?" And he was just like, "Sure." And he was just so confused. And it was a very interesting moment, he said. And but shout out Everett Sands, because he was awesome. It was hilarious and awkward, and it sucks that poor Everett Sands had to deal with this. And but he handled it like an absolute pro, just being like, "Yeah, I'm a coach for the Citadel. I'm not Vince Young at all. You have the wrong person." And of course, this reporter, not only is she an idiot for mistaking them, but she just kept persisting that "No, you're Vince Young," even though the guy was like, "I'm not Vince Young." She's like, "No, Vince Young, answer this question." She's like, "No." It was crazy awkward to see. So Golf Channel, I cannot believe that actually aired on TV.
That was tough.
Major loser in the Golf Channel. But you ready to talk some ball?
Yeah,
because I'm not going to lie to the listeners out there. It's not going to be a very long finals recap, because the Celtics are up 2-0 and they look as good as ever. I mean, game one, we can maybe talk about for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
This was the Porzingis game. He was absolutely dominant. And the Celtics just took control from the beginning and did not ever look back. They won by 18, Sam, holding the Mavs to 89.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about what are going to be the X factors going into this series, and a guy we think is criminally underrated, and this series is Drew Holiday. We've seen how big of a piece to the Celtics team he has been. And basically, the Celtics are saying Luka Doncic is going to get his, but no one else is. And that's to Drew Holiday. He's locked up Kyrie Irving. In game one, specifically, only had 12 points, 2 assists, 3 boards in 36 minutes. PJ Washington, one of the big pieces uh, of this Mavs team, 14 points. The duo of Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford only combined for 10 points. It's just an absolute defensive powerhouse with this Celtics team led by Drew Holiday.
Yeah. Real quick, if you keep either look at me, keep your eyes up, right? You just looked at the. Do you know who was the third leading scorer for the Mavericks?
Kleber.
So decent guess. So obviously, leading scorer was Luka. Second was PJ Washington with 14, by the way.
Nice.
And their third leading scorer was fella by the name of Jaden Hardy.
Of course.
Jaden Hardy. Yeah, a rookie who averaged just over 13 minutes per game in the regular season. He added 13
in 11 minutes.
In 11 minutes. So a rather efficient 13. Something tells me that may have been in garbage time. But yeah, I mean, we mentioned the role players, the ones we raved so long about, ones that carried them, or not carried them, but ones that were just absolutely massive in that series against Minnesota, just didn't show up and haven't really showed up. But yeah, and Kyrie, obviously, with only 12, shooting 6 for 19, that's just not going to get it done. And then you look over at the Celtics side of things, Sam, we talk about this was the Porzingis game. He had 20 and 21 minutes, about as efficient as it gets. Jaylen Brown was also excellent in this game, 22 points on 12 shots, shot over 50% from the field. Really, really impressive stuff. Drew Holiday. I feel like we're going to talk a lot about him in game 2 when we take a look at that. But yeah, this game, he was just completely solid, and every single one of Boston starters was in double figures. Yep. So many weapons. Yeah. So many weapons. They will absolutely murder you. But game 2, a little closer. A little close. I mean, it ended up a 7-point game. It never really felt like that.
But the paper tells a difference.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
The film, for sure.
No doubt about that. But yeah, Sam, this one, Boston ends up winning this 105-98, taking both at home. What do you got in game 2?
Again, same kind of story here, Tanner. They let Luka get his. He got a triple-double. PJ Washington stepped up just a smidge. But Kyrie, I believe he only had 12 points in the first half and 4 in the second half. Just absolute domination. I feel like he said, we're going to talk about this guy in the next game, and that is Drew Holiday. We know all about his defensive skills, being one of, if not the best defender in the league. He got done on the offensive end as well, had 11 rebounds and 26 points. 26 points we don't normally see from Drew Holiday. He's usually in that 15 range, and he just went crazy. Another role player, big time step up was Derek White, 18 points. Just an all around great performance in a game. Jason Tatum really didn't play well. He shot 6 for 22, something like that. But like we said in game 1, the big role players that we've raved about throughout this playoffs stepped up big again, and they're up 2-0 because of it.
Yes. A little bit better from the starters for Dallas. Every one of their starters was in double figures. I mean, Derek Jones Jr. was better. Daniel Gafford, I think, was pretty good in game 2. But it's going back to Kyrie, man. Like, obviously, he had 16. Okay. 7 for 18 and 6 for 19 shooting just isn't going to cut it. And I think he knows that. And obviously, we know the history between Boston and Kyrie, how they've kind of been his bugaboo. So definitely those narratives will continue to pop up if he keeps playing like this. And then, of course, you look to the bench, and they got absolutely nothing from their bench, 9 points, which included a Dante Exum three. So didn't think we'd say that in the 2024 NBA Finals, but Dante Exum made a three. And that's, I mean, and that's pretty much it. I mean, Josh Green added four and Derek Lively added two, and then that was it from their bench. So yeah, the supporting cast just has not been there. You look at the Boston side of things. You mentioned this was the Drew Holiday game. He was incredible. Defense, offense, rebounding did not matter. He added it all. Derek White with 18, Jaylen Brown with 20. I mean, just so many weapons. You do mention the Jason Tatum. Obviously, it's really hard to bash a player when his team is up 2-0 in the finals.
Yeah.
Because, and like all of this, of course, is just the goal of sports is to win. So if he does not play well in these finals and the Celtics win, simply put, I don't care. You know, and maybe he won't win the finals MVP, but whatever. But what I do think is particularly funny is Tatum when he gets onto the podium and acting like, oh, I'm not going to play for my ego. Asking about
I wasn't looking for my shot.
I wasn't looking for Jason Tatum took the most shots out of any Celtic, and it wasn't even close. He took 22. The next highest was 15. So 7 more shots than any other teammate. But hey, he wasn't looking for his shot.
No.
Yeah, it's not the fact that he shot 6 for 22. It's the fact that you weren't looking for your shot. But anyway, obviously, we're in no position to sit here and talk about the Celtics because they've been absolutely dominant in the first 2 games. Now, game 3, things get a little bit more interesting. Talk about Porzingis, who came back and obviously was a big catalyst in that game 1. Looks like he's back to day with a leg injury. So that could possibly change the way things are going in this series. Obviously, they go back to Dallas as well. So, Sam, does Dallas have a chance to turn this around with Kristaps either out or probably not at 100% and going back to Dallas, or is this just over?
I think they get one at home, but I'm not buying a whole lot of stock. This Celtics team's an absolute wagon without.
Yeah, I mean
Porzingis, and
so
it's gonna continue.
2 must wins or 2 can't loses. 2 can't loses.
2 can't loses.
2 can't loses for sure. Yeah, like you said, I do think there's a good chance they get 1. If they don't get 2, obviously, this is wraps because you got game 5 and game 7 in Boston. Not to mention game 6, you also got to win that one at home. So I tend to agree, but maybe Kyrie will play a little better at home. Maybe the absence of Kristaps or a hobbled Kristaps will change things up defensively for Boston because obviously that's another thing. He's been absolutely dominant in the paint, changing shots, affecting shots all the time. Luka is specifically, I mean, Kyrie obviously loves to get to the rim, loves to have his crafty finishes. Kristaps definitely has an effect on all those shots in the paint. But you got anything else to add from this finals, man? Definitely a little bit boring to start, but maybe, just maybe, with a key injury and going back to Dallas, things might get a little interesting.
Yeah, it's just been kind of crazy this NBA playoffs. I felt like we got a lot of good first and second round series, and since the conference finals, it's been not great.
Yeah, finals were brutal.
Honestly, conference semifinals, there were some that were like, all right, 4 games, that was fun. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see if the biggest question is, can Kyrie bounce back from his poor performances at game 1 and game 2?
No doubt about it. But that's gonna wrap it up for our finals recap. We still got some time to go. It's not over yet. But I think we should get into our guest, man. We got Jaron Kuykendall joining us. We're going to talk about some College World Series.
And we now welcome on Jaron Kuykendall. You might recognize the name. He is a frequent question asker for the pod, one of our loyal listeners. Jaron, it's good to have you on. We're going to talk some baseball. Let's kick it off with your favorite team, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Talk to me about how their season ended and what that looked like for you.
First and foremost, I think we had a really good regular season. Solid team. Great pitching. In our regional, we started out really good. We had, I think, 16 runs in the first game against SEMO. Things were looking promising that our hitting was going to pick up. And then we lost in the second game to Kansas State. And then we went out the next day and lost to Southeastern Missouri. And, it hitting was the big problem. I'll say that. I don't know the team average off the top of my head, but it was below 300. We prided ourselves on timely hitting this year, and it wasn't working. So
Yeah, I mean, it seemed y'all had one of the best pitchers in the college game this year in Hagen Smith. Even he got lit up in the regional. But yeah, tough way for the Hogs. It seemed this is a reoccurring story with the Hogs baseball team. Great regular season, not so much when it comes to the World Series. But let's hop right into the super regional matchups. Tennessee, the number 1 seed, took care of business against Evansville. Not a lot of people expected them to be here, but Tennessee, being the wagon they are, won 2 out of 3 games.
yeah, I mean, they won the first game 11-6. They lost the second game, which they probably were just pitching just one of the regular starters, not their ace, and then they went out and won 12-1 to get to the College World Series. I think Tennessee, in my opinion, they are obviously the best team in college baseball. They've won 55 games this year, and I don't really see anything slowing down. I mean, they have great hitting. So
Yeah, that Jesus.
Yeah, real quick, like looking at this, I mean, from someone who's a college sports fan, not necessarily a college baseball fan, I'm looking at that Evansville. Obviously not a name I expected to see here. And winning a game against the number 1 seed. Talk to me a little bit, like how big of an upset is this? Like I mean, obviously they didn't move on, so it's not that big of a deal, right? But at least to me, I don't know, from the outside looking in, it looks like that might be that's a pretty big upset for Evansville winning that game too. But talk to me a little about that, if I'm off base there, pun intended.
I think it's huge for the Evansville program. Uh, is it of concern? I wouldn't think so. It's baseball. Stuff happens. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, especially a team that makes it to the super regionals. I mean, they won a regional that they weren't supposed to. So, it's kind of one of those Cinderella stories, if you will. And
Yeah.
In a series of 3, I don't expect anything less than a good baseball team to go out there and get the bats rolling. So
Yeah, maybe I should have started here. Let's kind of talk about the format of the College World Series because it is the World Series. So it goes regional. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Regional with 4 teams, double elimination. And then they move on to super regionals where it's a matchup of 2 regional winners. And then those series are best of 3. And then they move on to this actual College World Series. And are those just 1 game or is it a series?
So it's double elimination up until the national championship, which is a best of 3.
Okay.
Okay, so the format for the bracket for the actual tournament in Omaha is similar to the regional, right? Where you got sort of more of a double elimination bracket as opposed to playing series and moving on that way.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Just wanted to clear that up because I don't think our listeners are huge college baseball fans. It seems the South kind of runs shit, and that's where majority of college baseball fans are. Speaking of another South team coming from the SEC, the 2 seed Kentucky took care of business against Oregon State out of the defunct Pac-12. Kentucky won game 1 10-0 and then 3-2. Did Oregon State even have a chance, or was it very clear from game 1? Kentucky was going to wipe the floor with these Beavers.
Oregon State, they're a solid team. They've always been a solid team. They won the College World Series in 2018 against Arkansas Razorbacks. They're
sorry to open up a sore there.
No, it's all good. We beat them in the regular season.
I can't remember how it happened.
Yeah, Jaron, remind us what happened in that game.
Someone drop a flag.
Well, we were up 1-0. We were up 1-0 in the series, and we're in game 2. And there was 2 outs in the 9th inning, top of the 9th, or bottom of the 9th, I can't remember. But either way, we get one more out, we win the game, and it was off to the side. It was in foul territory, and the rest is history.
That's tough. So Kentucky takes care of business there. Then another team from the SEC, shocking against the now defunct Pac-12 Oregon Ducks. A&M in some high-scoring games, 1 and 2, 10-6, 15-9. Any thoughts here? Or was this kind of the outcome everyone was expecting?
I didn't get to watch this game, but from the highlights, Texas A&M's just been a pretty dominant team, just kind of like Tennessee in that aspect. They've just been kind of running the table this year. Not shocking. I thought maybe Oregon might have been able to pull out one game, but just wasn't the case.
Looks like this team, just from the scores, 25 runs in 2 games. Looks like they bring the slug. Gave up 15 in 2 games. So it looks like they could be a pretty fun team to watch, scoring a lot, but giving up a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on.
Yeah, they do have 3 guys.
What's that?
Oh, I was going to say they do have 3 guys that are, I want to say, over 25 home runs. I might be wrong, but they're
bringing the slug.
Yeah. And then Brandon Montgomery are 2 notable hitters for them.
Yeah. Finally getting out of the SEC, we get UNC taking on West Virginia. UNC again, winning in just 2 games, 8-6, 2-1. Seems like this was a competitive series. Is that what you took away from this?
Yeah, pretty competitive. I think West Virginia is a lot better than what their seed was. North Carolina in the regional, it took every game to beat LSU. LSU kind of got hot towards the end of the season, being the runner-up of the SEC tournament. And, they won. I don't know if you even caught highlights of that game, but again, in the regional, North Carolina lit it up. Not lit it up, but they played a very solid game. And that's a good ball club right there. So that's a team to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was just going to say, interestingly, in that response, I know he said something about West Virginia being a little underseeded and LSU being one of the hotter teams in the NCAA. Drawing those 2 in your regional and then in your super regional, you said it's a team to watch out. Surely there's got to be some sort of battle-tested momentum you can kind of get behind that, facing 2, as you said, kind of underseeded or hot teams and coming out victorious in all those. And obviously they're the number 4 seed, so they're pretty damn good by themselves. That's a good point. UNC, you heard it here first, the team to watch out for.
Yeah, moving on, probably the best super regional matchup we had here. Clemson taking on Florida. Florida ended up winning this series in just 2 games, kind of shocking. Clemson. Jaron, did you catch this game 2 where I want to say it did go into extras?
Oh, yeah.
It went to like 13?
13.
I'd have to look back at highlights, but I have been watching Florida very closely. This weekend was pretty busy for me, but Florida, their team, their record shows they're a gritty team, and this isn't surprising. They have a lot of close games this year. I think they've won just 35 games, which is crazy that they made it to the College World Series. But yeah, I caught a little bit of the highlights at the beginning right before this, just because I because if I'm picking a team, with grit, that's going to go out there and give it their all, it's Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, specifically in that game too. I mean, we definitely would be remiss if we didn't shout out the Clemson center fielder. I don't know his name,
Oh my God.
but
One of the greatest
I
catches I've
mean,
seen in
but
a while.
first in the top half of the ninth, down three, hit a 3-run home run to tie it. I think it was the ninth, but late in the game, down 3-run home run to tie it. Game saving Willie Mays catch in the bottom half of the inning. But yeah, obviously to no avail. I mean, I guess you said you weren't shocked. A gritty team from Florida definitely looks like, according to the seeding at least, it was a little bit of a shocker there. I don't know if, and specifically in this game, kind of a little bit of an L for the ESPN broadcast in the most important extra innings.
Yeah.
The camera in center field went out. So you were watching the game from behind home plate, like kind of, like the ESPN Plus games when you watch those and they don't have cameras out in center field. So it was a little bit rough. But, you're right. That series rocked, that game rocked. And I mean, another SEC team plunges its ticket, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one, we had probably the best matchup on paper. Didn't look that way when it came to play. Georgia, a 7 seed, taking on 10 NC State. NC State absolutely destroyed Georgia 18-1 in game 2. Georgia bounced back 11-2, but NC State got the best of the Bulldogs in game 3, winning 8-4. Was this a big of upset as it looks? Because I know Georgia had probably one of the best players in college baseball this year. So was that shocking to see, or what? Is NC State that good?
NC State's got pretty good pitching. Georgia, they're not known for their pitching. So them giving up, 18 runs and then 8 runs in the last game it's not shocking, but I would say, it comes at a bit of a surprise. But yeah, I'd say NC State taking them over is pretty, it wasn't likely to happen. Georgia's got the what is it, Charlie Condon? He's off the top of my head, I don't know, but I think it's somewhere around 35, 36 home runs on the year. Definitely going to be top 5, if not top 3 MLB prospect this year. Just all around. I mean, it was a very good Georgia team, and they're pretty much a lackluster baseball program most years. You don't ever really hear anything about them. But NC State went out there, they did their business, and now they're in the College World Series.
Yeah, it was shocking. Looking at Condon's stats here. I mean, the dude rates 433 was his batting average. He hit he only had 41 Ks on the year. Just absolute rate. Let me look at his home runs. His home runs was 37. Just dude, absolutely
How many
raped.
games did they play?
They played
60.
37 home runs in 60 games. Oh my god.
He did that in 231 at bats.
Oh my gosh. That is absolutely insane.
And his
college baseball stats always get me. It's so funny because obviously you look at someone, because we're watching the Phillies and Red Sox. Bryce Harper just came up, one of the best hitters in baseball. OPS plus is 50-60% above average, and this dude's hitting 270, and that's a good MLB average. And this guy's hitting 430, 37 dongs and 200 some odd at bats, 60 games. It's absolutely insane. I mean, the MLB just played a 60-game season not too long ago. Imagine if someone hit 37 home runs that season. Insane.
Yeah, he absolutely raked. I think everybody kind of knows he is one of the top prospects going into this MLB draft. But moving on, let's talk about the absolute wagon that is Florida State. Thank God UConn has basketball, because their baseball team looked rough in that game 1. FSU 24-4. Iowa can't even score that in football. And But they kept it competitive in game 2, but the Seminoles ended up winning this one. What are your thoughts on this one, Jaron?
Florida State, I've kept up with them a little bit this season. Two guys I really like. They have two pitchers that I think are going to go maybe first. I know one for sure is going to go first round, second round, and for the other one, whenever their time comes. I don't know their age in school, but pitching's above par. Hitting's very good. Not surprising. I liked Florida State in this one. Before the series, I picked them. So
Yeah. So, well, I got a question after we talk about this next one. Virginia, Kansas State, who took care of Arkansas in the regional, they end up losing in 2 games to Virginia, 7-4, 10-4. Any shocker here, or was Virginia kind of the team everyone expected to come out on top in this one?
I would like to say yes, but Kansas State, they have. I mean, they shocked me in their regional. I know the Arkansas regional wasn't very strong, but I mean, went out there, beat Arkansas, and Virginia. They had in their regional, they had Mississippi State, and Mississippi State got hot at the right time, and they were able to come out of their regional with a win. So, they didn't do it in shocking fashion, but they did take care of business over Kansas State. So I think Virginia is a good team.
Yeah. So that kind of wraps up for the super regional. One question I have for you, Jaron. You talked about, obviously Tanner mentioned how ridiculous some of these batting averages are in the college game compared to the majors. Does that just put as good a batting as we see? Does that mean pitching just takes a hold of is most important over everything else? Because if you have a good pitcher, he can take you, or is it still you need a little bit of both, like we saw? Because Arkansas had a good ace and bullpen, but is it still a good balance like we see in the majors, or like just kind of talk about that?
I think the best example is LSU last year. They had arguably one of the best pitchers to come out of college in a long time, Paul Skeens, but they also had a pretty good bullpen. A few of their guys that they had, pitching this year, they were pitching last year in the College World Series, and then they had that, just insane batting lineup. So yeah, I think it does. I think it needs a little bit of both. Pitching, I'll say, you'll get into those pitcher duels, in the College World Series. You won't see like a high scoring game like 13-11 or anything. You'll see more like 5-2. Just not a lot of runs given up. So I think pitching is I wouldn't say most important because it's a team game. You need your bats rolling, everything. But yeah, I think pitching is definitely a main aspect, and if you have it, then you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking right off that, I mean, we have the field. We just talked about the super regional, the field: North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Florida State, Kentucky, NC State, Texas A&M, and Florida. Who do you think has the pitching advantage there? Is there a team that you look at where you're like, in a double elimination bracket, I like their pitching to stand up more so than any other team?
Yeah, to go off that, I mean, I have it listed on our little paper, but I look at team ERA going
Sure.
into the College World Series, and I think Texas A&M and Tennessee have the highest. But I mean, you look at a team like North Carolina, they have a 4.22 ERA, which is phenomenal. And I mean, and then you look at a team like NC State, they're on the lower side. Like you don't want in the sixes as a team ERA, but they're at 6.09, and so, I mean, if I had to give the edge to anybody, I'd probably say Tennessee, just because they're, that train is just rolling, like Sam said earlier. I mean,
Yeah. So let's dive in a little deeper into some of these matchups. Let's talk about game 1. Kicks off first pitch Friday, 1 p.m. North Carolina, Virginia. How do you see this game going, and who do you think's gonna win, and who are some of those players we need to look out for?
All right, to kick things off, North Carolina versus Virginia. I'm going to say who I think is going to win first, and then I'll dive a little deeper. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to give the edge to North Carolina. I think they're going to go out there. I think they're going to throw their ace the first game, but lineups haven't been given yet, so it's TBH. One guy that I'd say for North Carolina to really look out for, his name is Vance Honeycutt. If I'm not mistaken, he's hit 27 home runs on the year. He's a top 10 prospect in the MLB draft. He does it all. He plays center field, awesome out there. And some other notable guys that I was looking through, they have a guy named Parks Harbor. I don't have his stats pulled up, but he's really good at batting average. He's hit over 20 home runs, I believe. I think it's right at 20. So yeah, and then their ace Jason DeCaro. Not a team that I paid attention to all year. Mainly paid attention to SEC teams, but when I did watch him in their regional, he did exceptional against LSU. So
Yeah, that Vance Honeycutt had 26 home runs this year, 65 RBIs, 28 stolen bases. Seems like a guy who can do it all for this team, especially with a batting average of 314.
Yeah, it's
yeah, I
crazy
mean
good how some of these.
it's no Charlie Condon, but I mean
Yeah,
he gets it done out there.
shit, I'm not sure anyone is Charlie Condon. Is that his name?
Taunted.
But anyway, I noticed that these were two ACC foes here, so I went and looked at the schedule to see if they had run into each other during the regular season. Of course, they did. Interesting. They played a 3-game set in Virginia. Virginia took 2 of 3 in that set. So interesting little nugget there. But yeah. I mean, only two conferences are represented here, so we'll have a lot of these matchups between teams who have already played each other. So that'll be interesting to see.
It's crazy. The teams that can play more.
Yeah, weird
More.
how that works.
That's crazy. I think Iowa played like 30 games this year, which is insane. But you kind of mentioned Tennessee being kind of the cream of the crop in this World Series. They take on Florida State, who we just talked about, absolutely raked against UConn, obviously a much inferior opponent when facing these Volunteers. You think Tennessee takes care of business here, or is the Seminole going to shock them?
I don't want to be the guy that just rides with the SEC, but I'm looking at the numbers right now, and they have 2 guys who lead off. They have a guy, Blake Burke, who leads off, and then their second in the batting order, Christian Moore. I mean, one's hitting 376, one's hitting 375. One has 19 home runs, one has 32 home runs. I mean, that's not the entire batting order. They have another guy. His name's Billy Amick. He's hit 23 home runs. He hasn't played every game. He's played 59 of their 66, but he's hitting 313. I mean, it's unreal. Their lineup is unreal. I mean, they can just hit as a team. So I think their team average it's 304, which is insanely good. I mean, you're looking at more of a 280, 270 as a team batting average is really good, and they're hitting 304. So, and then Florida State, we already touched on them. They have 2 really good pitchers, so I'm actually interested to see this matchup. Good pitching versus good hitting, and then vice versa. Florida State's hitting 316 on the year as a team. That might, I don't know, based off the stats that I was looking at earlier, that might be wrong, and they also have a 4.86 ERA. So
is this going to be the matchup to watch in this kind of first round, Tennessee versus Florida State, or do you got another game you're looking at?
Yeah, this is one that I'm going to be watching for sure. I'm gonna try and watch all of them, but if there's one I'm gonna watch, it's going to be this one. Just because number one team, and you kind of always root against the number one team, but in this case, I want them to beat ACC. So,
shocker, the SEC fan wants the SEC school to win. Yeah, so next matchup we're going to talk about is Kentucky taking on NC State. Kentucky took care of business against Oregon State, and NC State kind of shocked some people, beating Georgia with Condon. So, talk to us about this series. Who you like coming out on top, and what players we need to look out for, and who do you expect to have a big game?
You know, I'm not a big believer in Kentucky, so I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go against SEC.
Shocker.
Wow, sound the
I know,
alarm.
What?
and just hear me out. All right, so Kentucky,
Oh, he's giving
obviously,
the
they've got
we
the.
got Calipari now. I see.
Yeah,
I see.
But
So this year, whenever they're at home, they've been hitting. This was like a couple weeks ago, like what during the regular season, but they had a big chunk of games. All right, at home they're hitting over 300, and away they were hitting just above 200. So they're on the road, they're at a big stage. So I like NC State. That's just me. Uh, if Kentucky goes out there and wins, congrats. But I just don't think it's going to happen. They haven't had pretty much lackluster hitting. They only have one guy over. I mean, I know it's hard to do, but they only have one guy over 20 home runs. The rest of them they just haven't been hitting. They have two guys over 1,000 OPS, which is on base plus slugging. Uh, so yeah, I'm taking NC State.
the first upset and against an SEC school. Who would have thought?
Very interesting. I mean, looking at some of these stats here, what screams out to me, I mean, both team ERAs over 5. So you mentioned the struggles hitting away from home. NC State, as you mentioned, with that ERA over 6. So it's kind of the, unstoppable force, immovable object. What wins out? Poor pitching or poor hitting. So interesting.
Yeah. And the final round one game, A&M versus Florida, battle of two SEC schools. Now, Jaron, if you take a look at the bracket, you see A&M with 49-13 record, Florida 34-28. Is it like every other sport, you just throw away regular season records? It's game time, or does that tell a little bit of this story?
Uh, just as y'all know, Texas A&M's been kind of at the top of baseball this year. Besides, the likes of like Tennessee and like North Carolina. But I'm who I'm picking. I'm gonna go with the safe bet. I'm gonna say Texas A&M. But like I said earlier, Florida is just that gritty team, and they got a guy. His name's Jack Caglione, and he's hitting. I think he's hit 34 home runs on the year. He's just that guy, and he also pitches. He's got a yeah, I think he's got like a 3 or maybe a 4 ERA, but I mean a dude that goes both ways. That's pretty impressive. And he's also a stud on first base. So just a guy to watch out for. He's gonna be one of those guys who's gonna go top 10, top 15 in the MLB draft. I'm gonna go towards maybe top 10. He's got that really good home run number. Maybe not as good of a batting average as the likes of like Charlie Condon, who's up there in home runs, but he went on a stretch of games this year. It was like 10 or 11 games in a row he hit home run. So it's just he's like one of those guys. And then that he's not the only one on their team. They got some other dudes that can hit. So it's going to be can Florida hit and can Texas A&M not pitch? I think that's going to be the story of the game because Texas A&M is going to go out there, they're going to hit. But can Florida go out there and hit with them? I think that's going to be what's going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah, and then just looking at the stats we got here, I mean, it seems like Florida has their work cut out for them. You mentioned Texas A&M's ability to hit the baseball. Team ERA, you just mentioned over 300. Team batting average for Texas A&M over 300. Team ERA for Florida over 6 as well, at least what I'm looking at here. So, yeah, it seems like that Florida pitching staff has a lot of work cut out for them. Obviously, another SEC matchup. I did take a look at the schedule. They did play a set of 3 in Gainesville, and Florida won 2 of 3 here as well, interestingly enough. So the underdog, it seems, in both the matchups from the same conference, the underdog took 2 of 3.
Yeah, so we kind of took a deep dive into each of these games. Let's talk about the future. Who you like winning it all? Who you like in the finals? And who do you like being crowned College World Series champions?
Ooh, that's so tough. Baseball every year it's weird. I mean, a few years ago, Ole Miss, anomaly. Mississippi State the year before, anomaly. So, except for like LSU last year, like a really high rated team is just not likely to go out and win. But I mean, you said earlier, Sam, Tennessee is rolling. And if I had to put my money on somebody, I'd put Tennessee. I mean, they have really good pitching. I mean, 3.83 ERA, batting average of 310. So I think they're going to go out there, do their business. Now, who they're going to play, that's where it gets kind of iffy. On one side they have, 3 very, very good SEC teams. Florida, not the best, but I mean they're spotty, and if they're on point at the right time, it could be either of those 3 teams. I don't foresee Kentucky. I took NC State, so I don't see Kentucky making it very far, but because I just don't believe in them. But I don't know. I think Texas A&M versus Tennessee would be a safe bet, just because those are the best of the teams in my opinion. But you could see a likes of like Tennessee versus NC State, which I think that would be very interesting because NC State over the years has been a very good program, and yeah. But I'm taking Tennessee.
Going with the safe bet, the team that's the hottest.
Can't blame him.
Can't blame him. So, in kind of the broad sense, for those who don't really know a whole lot about college baseball, so obviously this is dominated by SEC and ACC. Is SEC up here and ACC right here, or is it SEC ACC? Like, what is the gap between those 2 conferences, and is it that noticeable?
I think it is noticeable. That's no undercut to ACC. I think out of that bracket 1, I think it's between North Carolina and Tennessee. I think it's a toss up too. I think both teams are very good. I'm going to give the edge to Tennessee, but I think it could go either way. But when you're just talking conferences, I think I mean, if you look at it, every game the SEC it feels like a postseason game. At their ballpark, fans are always rowdy, games are always electric. I can't say the same for the ACC. Now, when it does come to postseason play, I think it is pretty electric out there. Just because it's that time of the year. But when you're putting one of them on a pedestal, I got to put SEC higher. And you look back at the past few years, SEC has just ruled. 2020 we didn't have a winner, but it went Vanderbilt in 2019. COVID, and then you had Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU, and I just think as far as I've been watching baseball, SEC has just been running the table. So
yeah, and obviously, again, we all know college baseball isn't even remotely popular to football and basketball. So you were mentioning all these stats, and of course, Tanner, being the MLB fan of this podcast, was shocked by these. So, like, what is a average batting average? Like, what is you're just a solid baseball player, but not extraordinary in the college realm in terms of batting, and like, what's a average ERA? Kind of break it down so like the MLB fans that listen to this realize the difference between the two. You know what I'm saying?
I think I'll start off with batting. I think a very average batting average would be, I'd probably say 280, 290, or 270. I'll do 270 to 290. I mean, if
So if you're
Yeah, if
not
I'm looking,
hitting 300, you got some problems. Is that what I'm hearing?
no, because I mean you can get on base other ways like walks, getting hit
Yeah.
by a pitch, but I mean nobody likes that. Everybody likes to see the big hit. So I mean when you think of college baseball, you don't think of Joe Schmo who's hitting 270. You think of someone on your team who's hitting 310, 315 and higher. So I mean, 270, 290, I think would be somewhere in that realm. I mean, if you're hitting below 250, you're not hitting at all, uh, in my opinion. ERA, I mean, ERA is weird. So, I mean, a guy like Hagen Smith, who I think is the best pitcher, coming out of college this year, I think he ended with like a 2.02. And I mean, that's insane. I mean, he went throughout the entire year, I think. It was just that last game that kind of got him up in the twos, but I mean he was rocking 155, 165, ERA all year, which is exceptional. An average one, I mean, it's kind of hard to gauge pitchers because they can be on for 4 or 5 games in a row, letting up 1 or 2 runs a game, and then boom, let up 6, 7, and then your ERA shot. So probably around a 4, I think would be average.
Yeah, I mean, just from like I'd say translation to the MLB, 4, that's pretty like a 4 ERA for an MLB starter is a good solid ERA. Might even be, yeah, I'd say that's about right. But I'd tell you what the average I said for context, Bryce Harper's hitting 277 this
Yeah.
year, and he's having a great offensive season. I mean, yeah, it's pretty crazy the how just good these hitters are, especially when you're facing college level pitching
Yeah.
talent, in which obviously you have the elite of the elite, like the name he mentioned, like Paul Skeens last year, or you have some of the guys who won't be playing
Yeah.
baseball in a couple years. So yeah, it's really interesting to see that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to kind of give perspective on that because let's be honest here, Jaron. College baseball is run through the South, and that's who is watching it. But
Yeah.
give us kind of your final pitch on why the average baseball fan needs to tune in to this College World Series as we wrap up this discussion.
I think Omaha is, everybody who watches college baseball knows you want to make it to Omaha. Well, we're here. Omaha is, right on the horizon. And not only to mention, I'm also excited to see which school brings home the shot record. How many
Yes.
shots can your school put down in a week, a week and a half?
Yes.
LSU being, raging all the time. They took home and the win last year, and they also broke the record. Now I don't know the number of shots, but it was pretty high.
Is over 1,500. I know that.
I mean, we can look it up right
Oh
now.
shoot, I think I saw it was like over 35,000
What?
or something like that. Like it was crazy. Maybe I'm way off, way out of line here, but I thought it was just crazy. Yeah, I think Omaha
Yeah,
bar owners.
68,000
Yeah,
shots. 68,888. Holy crap.
yeah. Omaha
now
bar owners are probably not fans of UNC taking out LSU and robbing them of 68,000 shots.
Oh my. That's actually crazy.
now,
Omaha's Rocco's Pizza. So shout out them. That's super cool. But 68,888. I don't
I'm
think
look,
that's ever gonna get beat
That's a number.
until LSU comes back.
I mean, it's hanging there.
I don't know.
You see,
Texas
like,
A&M, they get pretty rowdy, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Texas
I
A&M
tell
or
you what, though,
Tennessee. I don't know. I'd put my money on it. Do what? Sorry.
I was just gonna say that number, right? It's got to be. I'm sure it's somewhere in there. Like you get an Alabama or someone in there, maybe even in Arkansas who sees that LSU and they're like, no, we got to beat that.
Yeah.
They put all their force into being that. I think it can be done for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of which, I think a few
go
years
ahead.
ago, Arkansas got up to 30,000 or something like that, but then they got booted out. I think semifinals or whatever. But yeah, LSU. I think they're going to hold on to it for a while.
Yeah, that's also like you can buy as many shots, but your team needs to keep going to stick around, you know?
Now, interestingly enough, you know who might beat it? Now that I think about it, obviously it'd be a matter of this team getting there. But what if Nebraska gets there?
Yeah. Field advantage.
Home field advantage. And even when they just go to the championship game, if it's LSU versus Arkansas or whatever the hell, they're still buying shots and it's still counts for Nebraska, even though they're two left.
Yeah, that is true. But Jaron, got any final thoughts on this College World Series as it kicks off next week?
I think if you're gonna start watching the College World Series, I would start watching this year. I mean, you got dudes hitting lights out. I mean, years past you had your few guys here and there, but I mean, there's two or three guys on every team that's hitting very well, very exceptional. So I think it's gonna be one for the record books when it comes to most watched. Hopefully, I mean this is a very good lineup of teams, so it's gonna be very good TV.
No doubt.
Any final thoughts from Tanner?
I'm no man. I mean, I'm excited to watch it. I still think it's fascinating. Four SEC teams, four ACC teams, the battle for the championship. As you mentioned, we have a little streak of SEC teams, so it's going to be a while before the ACC can overtake the SEC, as Jaron said. But could start this year, so I'm really interested in that, and it should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Jaron, thanks so much. We knew you'd be the guy to break this bracket down for us. So we appreciate you coming on and hope to talk to you soon.
All right,
Thanks so much, Jaron. Thank you so much to Jaron for joining us, talking about some College World Series starting up soon. But before we wrap up the episode, we got some questions to get to. We got two questions today. The first one is from your mom, Carol Godsey, and she wants to know, this is a good question, by the way, what life lesson did you learn from playing sports?
Yeah, this is a pretty deep question. And honestly, I don't have a great answer, but it's like, never give up. Honestly, is the most simple I can put. Because obviously, in every sport career, you're gonna have those games where you're outmatched in every which way, but you still gotta go out and play and probably get smoked. But you still gotta get up and compete. But yeah, that's kind of my biggest life lesson. Like you can't just throw in the towel. You gotta keep going at it.
Yeah, I mean that is a great one, and as you said, it's a very like just in life when things aren't going your way, you just got to keep going, which happens obviously in every sport ever. I think mine is kind of connected to that because I think for me it was more of the first part was the same of just like keep your head down and keep working hard and keep going, but worry about what you can control.
Yeah.
Is kind of where because obviously sports there's luck in every single sport to ever live. I mean basketball, you go up for a rebound, there just so happens to be a foot underneath your foot and you roll your ankle and you're out for a few games. You know, the ball goes 75% in and just pops out. Like what kind of those rim rattlers? But also in baseball, I mean, obviously the old adage in baseball, hit them where they ain't, because there are so many times where you hit one on the screws exactly where you wanted to. If it was 3 centimeters to the left, it would be a double in the gap, but instead it's caught by the outfielder.
Yeah.
Or you just flick your bat out and you hit a little dinky and it just happens to drop over the first baseman's head. Like there's so much luck involved in everything. Just control what you can control.
Yeah.
And as long as you do that and worry about putting your best foot forward and things you can control right on cue, as some guy on the Red Sox has an absolute screamer off the bat right to the first baseman. But as long as you're putting your best foot forward and what you can control, I think that is where you want to be, and you'll be happy with how things go.
Yeah.
But the second question is from my mom, Carrie Disley. She wants to know, also another great question, in honor of the upcoming Father's Day, what is your favorite dad joke, Sam?
Yeah, my dad's known for his dad jokes in our family. This is one that that he tends to repeat a lot. Tanner, do you know how to catch a polar bear?
How to catch a polar bear?
How to catch a polar
I
bear?
can't say I do.
So you cut a hole in the ice and line it with peas. When the polar bear goes to take a pee, you kick it in the ice hole.
What the? Oh no! I can't say.
You
I
like
was
that?
expecting
You
that.
like that?
All right. Well, shout out Ron. What a great one. What a great one right there. Mine is definitely not. Mine is definitely a different route from that. I have two, which are interestingly both nationality driven in Europe. First one, Sam, have you ever had a German sausage?
No.
They're the worst.
Ah, nice.
That's one.
nice.
And my second one, Sam, did you hear about the Italian who died?
No.
He passed away.
Boo. That's bad.
It is bad, right? But it rocks at the same time. Those are my two favorite
That's
ones.
good.
But yeah, definitely
Those are
different
good.
routes there.
Yeah, very different routes.
Different routes for sure. But that's going to wrap it up for episode 133 of Crunch Time. Talked about a lot today, gave a quick finals update. Of course, first we started with winners and losers and welcomed on Jaron to talk about the College World Series. But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel, Crunch Time with the N326 duo. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter, on X, TikTok, and Instagram at crunchtime_pod. But the clock has run out on this episode, and we'll see you in the next one on Crunch Time.
Here.